Thank you for joining us today on session regarding the 1099 NEC form, previously form 1099 miscellaneous. My name is Perla Gallegos with HFMA Accounting Department. At the end of today's material, attendees will be able to understand the new 1099 NEC form and the filing process. We'll go over the reporting available in QuickBooks to help identify those contractors the chapter region paid throughout the calendar year. Many of you are familiar with the original Form 1099 miscellaneous. Well, prior to 2020, if you were a freelancer or hired contracted work, you either issued or received a 1099 miscellaneous. Businesses are no longer required to use this form to report non-employee compensation. Box 7 does no longer pertain to the reporting of this type of income. Based on an old form from 1980, the 1099 NEC is a form specifically for reporting non-employee compensation, currently defined as payments to individuals not on a payroll, but on a contract basis to complete a project or assignment. As you can see on the new form, businesses are now required to report non-employee compensation on Box 1 of Form 1099 NEC. Not very different from the old form. Most of the required fields are the same. You'll see information for the payer and the recipient. The payer information should list the name and original tax ID of the chapter region filing. The address should be that of HFMA due to the shift of officers and to avoid interruption of correspondence. We'll discuss how to obtain the recipient's information by obtaining a W-9 in just a couple minutes. There is box 4 to report federal income tax withheld, and I don't think we have assets in foreign countries, so the FATCA checkbox will almost always stay unchecked. If applicable, the state taxes withheld would be reported on box 5 along with box 6 and 7 to report earned income in the state. All businesses must file a Form 1099 NEC for non-employee compensation if all 4 of these conditions are met. You made the payment to someone who is not your employee. You made the payment for services in the course of your trade or business. You made the payment to an individual, partnership, a state, or in some cases, a corporation. You made payments to the payee of at least $600 during the year. Some examples of payments you must report on Form 1099 NEC include professional service fees, such as fees to attorneys, mainly legal services, accountants, architects, contractors, engineers, etc. Fees paid by one professional to another, such as fee splitting or referral fees. Commissions paid to non-employee salespersons that are subject to repayment but not repaid during the calendar year. You must also file Form 1099 NEC for anyone from whom you withheld federal income tax under backup withholding rules for any amount, even if it's less than $600. The most common payments chapters make that would require filing in 1099 NEC are fees and expenses paid to speakers for chapter programs. For example, if a chapter gives a speaker a travel allowance and does not request receipts, it is included on the 1099 NEC. However, if a speaker is reimbursed for actual expenses documented by receipts, those expenses need not be reported on the 1099 NEC. All right, so moving on, the Form W-9 request for taxpayer identification number and certification is a one-page IRS information form that individuals and businesses use to send their taxpayer identification number to other individuals, clients, banks, and other financial institutions. You must obtain a Form W-9 from any party the chapter or region is doing business with to help identify the type of business and whether a Form 1099 NEC is required. The W-9 will help complete Form 1099 NEC as it verifies the taxpayer's ID or Social Security number, the name of the business or person, and address. Most importantly, it serves as audit support. Any person or entity who files any of the forms shown in line 6, in this case Form 1099 NEC, must file Form 1096 to transmit to the IRS. It is a summary and transmittal form that should include basic company information like the name, address, contact information, employer identification number, and the total number of forms that are being submitted to the IRS. Remember that the information you're entering here applies to the chapter region, not the independent contractor you're submitting a 1099 NEC for. Again, we recommend the chapter region to provide HFMA's address to avoid interruption of correspondence. You can file Form 1099 NEC electronically, or you can mail it to the IRS. There are multiple copies of Form 1099 NEC you must distribute. Copy A and the Form 1096 go to the IRS. Copy 1 would go to the State Department, only if applicable. Copy B and copy 2 are distributed to the independent contractor. And copy C, the chapter region should maintain for their business records. Filing due dates. Typically, Form 1099 NEC is due to the IRS and the payee by January 31st of the following year. Regardless of how it is filed, for 2021, the due date is February 1st due to January 31st falling on a Sunday. Electronic filing is required for 100 forms or more. Chapters will not have this many forms to file, but just keep that in mind. There is no automatic 30-day extension to file unless the chapter region meets certain hardship conditions. And for that, I would recommend that you contact the accounting@hfma.org email address for more information on meeting the deadline if any issues are known. There are exceptions. Some payments do not have to be reported on Form 1099 NEC, although they may be taxable to the recipient. Just to mention a few exceptions that do not require these forms to be reported. Generally, payments to a corporation, including a limited liability company that is treated as a C or S corporation, payments for merchandise, telegrams, telephone, freight, storage, and similar items. Wages paid to employees should be reported on Form W-2. Business travel allowances paid to employees should also be reported on Form W-2. And for more information, I would recommend visiting the irs.gov on instructions for 1099 NEC. Missing the deadline is not the end of the world, but you will have to pay the following IRS penalties for each late 1099 form. $50 if you file within 30 days of the due date per return with a max penalty of $565,000. $100 if you file more than 30 days late, but before August 1st. $260 if you file on or after August 1st. If you intentionally fail to file, you may be subject to a minimum penalty of $530 per statement with no maximum. Again, to avoid further penalties, it is important to obtain a valid W-9 form from all parties the chapter region is in business with to make sure that when filing all information is correct. There have been not many cases in the past, but some where the region or the chapter has had to issue corrections. So please do your best to avoid this, as penalties seem to be more strict and higher. So most of our leaders should have access to QuickBooks. If you do not, please be sure to reach out to accounting@hfma.org and you will be sent a link directly from Intuit with instructions to log in. Now with your QuickBooks access, you'll log in to further access the chapter or region's reporting center. And the easiest way to access the reporting center is by using the left navigation panel and clicking Reports. You'll be prompted to the reporting center where you'll be able to access a few options of reports under the expenses and vendors listing. If the chapter region used the option to track their 1099 contractors at the time of creating the vendor, the 1099 transaction detail report is the report you'd want to go with. If this option was not selected or tracked, the other reports listed can help identify which vendors fall under 1099 reporting. We would like chapters and regions to use QuickBooks correctly to track all 1099 contractors and information. So if there's any help needed or further instructions, please feel free to contact accounting@hfma.org and we'll be happy to assist. And this leads us to the end of today's discussion on the 1099 NEC form. Here are your available resources. We encourage our leaders to visit the Chapter Resource Center to access this presentation and other material available. If you do not have login information, please contact us at accounting@hfma.org and we'll properly connect you and get you access. Um, Thank you again for attending today's presentation. Feel free to follow up with us if you have any questions or further inquiries. Thank you.